Great. All right. So welcome to this morning's class together. So I'll just go through the props that I've asked you to gather this morning. I know it might be a little bit of a challenge. I've asked you to gather 3 blankets and 2 towels, or a mixture of the two. So that's 5 in total. Don't worry if you don't have that many. We can just improvise, but that's just the sort of luxury version of what we'll do later on. So before we get started, if you could take your softest towel or softest blanket that's got the most give, just come and roll it up into like a sausage shape, sausage roll shape, and preferably not too thick, not too high. But once we come into that practice, you can adjust it, but something that's got plenty of nice softness and give, and just have that ready beside you. And so today's session, I thought we would do a class focused on nourishing the chest, the organs in our chest, the lungs, the heart, and a focus on breath as well, and our diaphragm, which separates the chest cavity to the abdominal cavity. So now this kind of work, which we've talked about a little bit in the past, and you may have found, I'm just going to check that this is just pinning on yeah, that's great. So in this area of the chest, including the lungs and the heart, we feel a lot of our emotions. It's where our love and our joy arises from. But it's also the house of anxiety and worry. And so when we're doing this kind of awareness and this nourishing and this work, we have to be very careful that if there is any triggering happening, if there has been a lot of anxiety recently or in the past, if you are feeling that this is too overwhelming for you, then I'm also going to introduce us to a concept of having an inner resource, and to call upon this inner resource at times that we might need it. So there is this sort of, I guess, this concept of having a window of tolerance. And in this practice of yoga, we're playing with moving into that window, whether it's a tolerable feeling or sensation, or whether it's too much, whether we're moving into overwhelm and everything wants to shut down and we just can't go there because it's too raw or it's too uncomfortable. So using our inner resource, which I'll guide you through to explore your own shortly, we can explore going into the sensations that we might not have really faced or opened up to in the recent times or ever. We are allowing ourselves space to really feel into all the layers of our being, and sometimes those layers can be uncomfortable and challenging. So coming into our inner resource can be a way of finding safety and strength and security, to then perhaps revisit those areas of the body that might be storing some sensations, some feelings, some emotions that perhaps we haven't really been able to face or face on, feel into. So yes, so let's explore that. It's hard to not really converse with you all to find out whether that's fairly clear. So we'll move through a practice, like I said, nourishing the chest, the heart, the lungs, and we'll do this with awareness and some breath intention and work, and then we'll do this with some movement and some restorative like postures. So I'd like to invite you into some sort of seated posture, and that could be in a chair, that could be lying down, although if you are feeling a little bit tired today, then perhaps taking a more upright, alert position, and make sure that you are as comfortable as you can be. Use any of your props, and you might even choose to use a wall to lean against. And set yourself up where you can be present and awake and alert. And I invite you to either soften your gaze, not necessarily looking at the screen anymore, softening your gaze downwards, or maybe closing your eyes. And doing this as a way of turning your attention inwards. And you can do that with your eyes open too, so if that feels more serving for you, do so. And so an inner resource can be any image, any memory that evokes a sense of peace, a sense of resilience, a sense of calm and optimism. So I'd like you to take this time to explore your own personal inner resource. So I invite you to call to mind a place or a memory where you felt at peace, where you could be completely who you are, completely yourself, and at ease. And take your time to allow this memory or this place to surface into your awareness. Don't worry about finding the perfect one or grappling with lots of different ideas, just finding something that feels really connected to you. And it might be a particular place in nature, or a forest that you enjoy, a beach that you like to visit. And it might be a favourite spot in your garden, somewhere that you might spend time with your pet or a loved one. Let that image or memory arise. Just spend some time here, try not to make any big narrative or story, just using this place, using this memory to evoke the feeling of safety, the feeling of calm. And you could spend just a little bit of time with this memory, this image, allowing some details to emerge. Perhaps you notice colours or smells, textures, just allowing the details to emerge. And then letting that go when you're ready to. And if your eyes are closed, you might like to open your eyes again, and just remembering that this is your own personal, unique inner resource that you might call upon throughout this session, throughout your day, throughout your week. And so before I invite you to come and lie down, I'm just going to show you some hand positions so that you don't need to look up from your position. Now, this next inquiry is inspired by the work of Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, Body Mind Centering, and also Lisa Peterson, who I've been joining some of her classes recently. So the hand positions are placing the fingertips just above the clavicles, the collarbones, and resting the palms on the upper chest. And we're feeling into the upper lungs here, or we're sensing into the upper lungs here. So if the arm positions aren't comfortable, adjust them in any way, or use some support underneath your arms so that you can relax your shoulders. The second position is taking the hands to the sides of the lungs, sides of the rib cage, and having the hands on the breasts, fingers pointing into the center of the chest. So my hands are pretty much underneath my armpits. Again, adjust. You can go a little bit lower. You could have the hands a little bit further on top of the chest rather than to the sides if the shoulders are really uncomfortable here. And then the third position, again, there's a couple of options here. You can take the backs of the hands to the lower lungs. Or again, if that's uncomfortable, because we're going to be lying on our back, then you might use one of your towels, just a smaller towel behind into that region of the upper back, the upper chest, sorry, the lower chest. So those positions again, 1, 2, and 3, or a towel on the back. And now come and lie on your back if that's a comfortable position for you. And as you lie down, have your knees bent and your feet on the floor, coming into constructive rest, so that you can remain fairly alert throughout this practice. If it's uncomfortable to have the knees bent, of course, straighten your legs out. And you might choose to have something on top of you, a blanket if it's chilly, or a prop underneath your head. Good. So we've got 3 distinct different lobes in our lungs, and we're going to explore sensing into these organs of ours. So the 3 lobes are quite apparent in the front of the lungs, and then in the back of the lungs there are mostly just 2 of the lobes. There's a tiny bit of the middle lobe. So we're going to sense into the upper lobe by placing the fingertips just above the clavicle. So placing the hands on that first position. And actually, sorry, before you tune into this, and you might relax your arms a moment, something that can be helpful to do here is just to tune in to this new body position. So spend some time settling the weight of your body into the ground. Try to let go of any watching of your experience and turn your attention into your sensing and your feeling body. So feeling where your body meets the ground. Sensing the weight of your body. Seeing whether you can spend the next couple of breaths releasing, yielding, softening into that support. So taking this opportunity to check in with how you are as you begin your practice this morning. Inviting all of the layers of your being into the practice, your physical layer. Noticing your mental state. There's a lot of ruminating, there's a lot of thinking, or if the mind is quieter. Noticing your energetic body. How's your energy level this morning? What is your overall feeling tone, the texture that's residing with you right now? Noticing your connection to your spirit, connection to yourself, the environment around you, the people around you. Getting an overall sense of how you're feeling this morning. And knowing that throughout this practice today, you might find it useful to return back to your inner resource that you found for yourself. or you might find that you don't need to, and that's absolutely fine as well. So when you're ready, if they're not there already, resting the palms of your hands on the upper part of your lungs. And the lungs extend higher than the collarbone, so ensuring that the fingers are a little bit higher than the collarbones if that's comfortable for your shoulders. And just resting the hands there for a moment. So I'd like to be clear that there's nothing that needs to be done here, other than simply tuning into the felt sense of your hands in contact with your body. Can you take a very kind and gentle awareness into this feeling of touch? And perhaps sensing into the space behind the hands, getting a sense of where the upper lungs reside in your body. You might get a sense of a gentle movement from your breath. But no need to change your breath here. We're not encouraging the breath into the hands or anything here. We're just simply allowing the body to breathe how it needs to breathe and sensing into the space beneath the hands. Notice if there are pleasant sensations as you sense into the upper chest, lightness or heaviness, or unpleasant sensations. And be kind to yourself, working at your own pace. When you're ready to, taking the hands to the second position, the heels of the hands around the sides of the ribs, and the fingers pointing in towards the center of the chest, hands in line with the breasts. And if possible, resting the arms on the ground and making sure that you're comfortable. Change the position if needs be. Sensing into this feeling of touch here, and can you be curious? Curious to what is arising in your experience now. Perhaps you sense a little bit more movement here. Perhaps not. Can you sense into the middle part of your lungs? Try not to grip and force the mind into this part of your body. Just try and rest the mind and just allow the awareness to appear naturally as you just simply settle your awareness into the space behind the hands. Can you soften, can you relax into your experience any more than you are? Does it feel different to have your hands here than in the first position? More comfortable, less comfortable, indifferent? And then when you're ready, placing the hands in the third position, either backs of hands on the lower parts of the lungs, the lower ribs, Or if that's inaccessible for the arms today, then you might use a blanket or a towel to give that feedback. So there's nothing that needs to be thought about here or analysed. Try and let go of that part of your being for now and sense into this feeling of touch. And sense into the feeling tone within this lower lobe of your lungs. Most of our lungs are in the back body. So perhaps sensing a little bit more awareness there, perhaps, or less. And then when you're ready, releasing the arms, coming into a neutral position for your arms. And take a moment just to be still in a neutral posture. Take a moment to sense into anything that you notice within your experience. And just notice if there's any greater sense of the organs of your lungs or the texture of your breath, without trying to control or change anything. And I invite you now to rest your left hand on the area of your heart, and that might be the physical heart, just to the slight left of the chest, or it might be just right in the center, whatever feels more comfortable for you in your body. And again, this could be triggering for you, and if it is, take your own pace. You might feel into your resource if that feels more pleasant and serving for you. But if you're keen to continue, sense into the touch of your hand on your heart, your physical heart. Be gentle. You feel into the position of your heart, which is comfortably nestled between the two lungs in perfectly formed sockets, being held there and supported, and also being gently manipulated because of the position of the heart nestled between the two lungs in the center of the chest, or slightly off to the center of the chest. Each movement of the lungs gives your heart a gentle, nurturing massage. So you might get a sense of that movement or that manipulation here. Not only are your lungs manipulating your heart, but also your diaphragm, your primary breathing muscle, is attached to your heart through fascia. So the movement of your diaphragm, each and every breath, will be moving and massaging your heart. So as you rest a very kind and soft awareness here, just noticing what arises for you. If there is any sign of anxiety or worry, then proceed with caution, but how might it be just to be with that feeling, whatever is arising, whatever texture or tone, whether it's strong, whether there's nothing there at all, whether it's familiar, unfamiliar. Can you be curious and kind? And then when you're ready, releasing your hand if you haven't already. So I'm going to invite you to come and lie on either side really, but I'm going to come on my left side so that you can see and I can see. And having something for your head, a blanket or two. And then taking your pre-rolled soft blanket. Now we're going to sense into the sides of the lungs next. And from this position, we're probably not really going to access the upper lobe so much, but we're going to start probably mostly in the middle lobe. And start by placing the blanket underneath the armpit, pretty much in that same first position that we started in. Now, if it's more comfortable for you, you might have something between your knees. And make sure that you've got room behind your head on your head support, because we're going to eventually start to rotate. So if you need any extra support here, then make sure you use it for your head, for your shoulder, if you need more support underneath your left shoulder. And then rest yourself down over that support. And it should feel, or we're looking for a very gentle amount of pressure, of contact, nothing too strong, but enough to feel that there's something there underneath the upper mid area of the ribs. Relax the weight of your head here. How you might completely surrender the weight of your left rib cage, your left lung, as if it could rest down into that support. Sensing into the left side of your chest. The left lung. Perhaps noticing how this feedback of the contact of the blanket underneath you, and that might change any awareness, any sensation. Perhaps there's a change of breath without trying. And then try just sliding your blanket down an inch or so. So we've done something similar to this with our Gertie balls in the past. So you might imagine your blanket like one of those really pliable Gertie balls, inflated Gertie balls. And simply sensing into this new positioning of this feedback. Perhaps getting a sense of this lower area of your lung, your left lung. And from here you could try just gently opening your right shoulder to start to come towards lying on your back, but just be gentle. You could lift your right knee, the foot comes to the floor. Just having a little bit of an explore. Opening, closing the knee as you start to roll towards your back. Tension still on the lower or on the left side of the chest. And then finally, when you're ready, lowering the blanket just a little bit further, a little bit lower down. So taking it down to the lower part of the ribs, pretty much maybe slightly lower than that V-like shape where the rib cage meets, so slightly lower than that. And here, sensing into the diaphragm, perhaps. And without strain, working within your own level of comfort, you could explore expanding your breath slightly, breathing down into that feedback. Giving the diaphragm a very gentle, subtle workout. Only if this feels comfortable for you. You could also explore extending the top leg away, and either with the hand on the head or the arm relaxed down by your side, just explore coming up just a very small height before relaxing back down. Just trying that a couple of times. Before relaxing back down on your side. And when you're ready, coming up very slowly and gently. Before coming over to your other side, you might like to just take a moment in a seated posture, gaze soft or eyes closed. Taking the time to really sense into the two sides. First, sense into your left lung, or whichever lung was closest to the ground, left side of the chest. Comparing it to any sensations, any feelings you notice in the right side. Notice if there's any greater awareness on one side than the other, if there's any differences between the two sides. Perhaps there's a sense of nourishment or aliveness in one side that isn't there on the right, perhaps not. And then when you're ready, making your way onto your right side or your second side with your blanket higher up to start, so underneath the armpit, in line with the breasts. And as you lie your right side down, give yourself time to settle the weight of your head, to settle that right side body down into the ground and into the support of that rolled blanket. Yielding, softening into that contact. As you sense into the right side of your chest, the upper part of your lung. When you're ready, sliding the blanket down a little bit lower. Just an inch or so lower. This is quite subtle work, so don't worry if you're not feeling very much. Remember that this is a practice and it takes time to feel into these different parts of our body. So sensing into the physical contact first of this new position of your blanket. And then just very gently explore sinking your awareness into the space within the body. That right side of the chest. For me, again, you could explore starting to roll towards coming onto your back. You could lift that left knee away from the right knee, placing the foot on the floor. Perhaps you notice a little bit more pressure being applied into that right side of the ribs. And then closing and opening a couple of times. Just allowing your body to breathe how the body needs to breathe. When you're ready, taking the blanket, coming back to rest on your side, knees together, and take the blanket just a little bit lower, a little bit lower. So coming towards the lower ribs here. So contacting with just the lowest part of the third lobes of the lungs, and also the area where the diaphragm attaches. And again, take some time just to settle first. And in this place, you could explore expanding your breath gently without strain. Just getting a sense of a little bit of conversation happening through that right side with the blanket. Again, you might try that extending of the top leg and the exploration of lifting leg and head together and releasing. A couple of times. Resting back on your side when you're ready. And then when you're ready to come off the ground, and do so slowly, I'm going to invite you to come into a tabletop position. Use your blanket underneath your knees if you wish. If your wrists are feeling sore today, if you've been doing lots of typing or gardening, and the wrists, like we've talked about before, don't feel comfortable being in that full flexion, you might use your mat and fold it a couple of times, or a blanket, just to decrease that angle of flexion. So setting yourself up in your own tabletop posture. And I'd like you to imagine that you have got a bubble around the circumference of your chest. So we've talked about this before, like a hula hoop, but today we're going to imagine a bubble, a soft bubble. And bubbles pop easily, so we have to move very gently, very slowly, exploring, moving around the inner circumference of your bubble, just with the upper part of your spine. How softly and gently can you move this part of your body? How aware can you stay with the contents of your inner ribs? Change direction when you're ready. Might even mean slowing the movement down to maintain that awareness of the contents of your ribs. When you're ready, exploring, taking both feet over to the right side and looking around the corner as you open the left side of the ribs, left side of the lungs, and then just try swapping sides. And I'm crossing one leg over the other. You can explore your own way. You can also explore taking the pelvis back as you look around towards the feet. Sensing into the lengthening, the expansion that is happening on the opposite side to where you're looking. And then taking a rest. When you're ready, you might like to come down into child's pose. You might like to come to sitting, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And hands could be lengthening forwards, head on the floor, elbows relaxed. Head might be on the towel or a cushion, or hands down by your feet. And if it's comfortable to release the weight of the chest. As you gently open the backs of your lungs. And the whole back surface of your body, or the torso at least. And when you're ready, slowly coming out of your restful shape. And take your time to make your own way off the ground. And there were two more things that I asked you to gather for this session, and I forgot to say at the beginning of the recording. So the other two things were your chair, your dining room chair, or some kind of seat with a fairly sturdy surface, and also a bed pillow, but you could also use a couple of sofa cushions as well. So having your chair ready and walking the feet back to come into a standing downward facing dog. So you could extend, you could use your hands on the seat of your chair. You can try bending your knees first. Getting some traction through the support of the hands and the reaching back of the tail and the pelvis. As you lengthen the sides of the waist, the sides of the ribs. Taking as many breaths as you would like to here. You can step the feet in and either use the chair to rest the head on, and you could turn the chair around if you want the support a little bit higher, or you could fold yourself down into a forward bend with the knees bent. Either way, opening up the backs of the ribs, the backs of the lungs. That could be resting head on your chair or hanging your head in space. So finding a position in your own body that serves you, that opens and expands the backs of the lungs, the backs of the ribs. And you might choose to come in and out of the forward bend. So remembering to bend the knees and press down to come up if you're doing so. And folding back down in your own time. Taking as many here as you'd like before coming back up to standing. And taking a slightly wider stance and hip distance in a way. So now this teacher that I mentioned right at the beginning of the session, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, she's a body mind centering, she's a pioneer of body mind centering, and she talks quite a lot in her sessions about moving from the organs. And you might like to explore that here in this next movement. We've been feeling into the lungs and the heart. How might it be in this next movement to explore or to inquire into moving from the lungs? Now it's a rotation. We did this last week. And I'll just show you the movement first. Hands are soft and gliding. We talked about this in our fluidity and water class last week. And the body is moving through rotation. So how might it be to actually use the organs to initiate the movement in the body? Now this takes awareness and really feeling into that inner space, that somatic space of your being. And it might be that you just do very small, very slow movements to get a sense of that. As if your lungs could initiate the movement. Or it might feel quite easy for you, and so you might go a little bit bigger. Maybe even looking all the way around the corner, but continuing this idea or this exploration of moving from the lungs. And then when you've had enough, slowing the movement down. And take a moment in standing just to sense. Just to notice what you notice. Right. So I'm going to invite you into a little sequence using your chair. If you don't have your chair, you could also use your wall, perhaps. And we start in a warrior one position, and we've done this before in class. I'll talk you through it with some guidance of the breath, but of course breathe how you need to breathe. If this breath isn't working for you, I'm going to start with my left leg actually so that you can see a little better. You could start on your left leg too so that we're doing the same leg. And come into a warrior one position. Left foot forward, right foot back, feet on separate tracks, so on away from the midline of your mat, so you can feel nice and stable. Good. So our inhale and the gentle movement through the lower body is what allows the arms to float up. So find that stability first in your legs, and then when you're ready, inhaling and allowing the arms to float up over the head. Exhaling and bending the right knee. And you'll inhale a very small little upper back bend, a very small little opening through the lungs. Folding forwards on the exhale. And you can use your chair here, or you can keep your arms down by your side. But what I'm doing here is finding a diagonal in the spine. So there's a little bit of work here to stay. From this bent knee position, folding forwards and taking hold of the seat of your chair, keeping the knee bent until you get down into that support. And then from here, you could explore starting to straighten the front leg. So being mindful not to flex the spine too much. If that is what's happening for you, turn the chair around so that you've got a bit more height there for the arms. Trying to keep the spine nice and elongated and the backs of the lungs nice and open and broad. To come up, bend the left knee, taking the arms off the chair and come all the way up to standing. Stepping forwards and swapping sides. So as you swap sides, make sure that you're nice and stable again. If you need to go a little bit wider or a little bit narrower, do so here. And then allowing your inhale and the yielding through the feet to float the arms up overhead. Bending the right knee as you exhale, and as you inhale, a little upper back bend. And be really minute, folding forwards on the exhale, keeping the right knee bent, keeping the spine on a diagonal, and then taking the hands to your chair with a bent knee and explore starting to straighten the right leg. And the right leg might stay bent. Keeping the back body nice and broad and long. To come up, bend the right knee, press through the feet gently to bring the spine back up. And take a step forwards when you're ready. And I'm going to invite you through another round of this. Just notice in between the rounds how you're feeling. Whether this has an energizing quality or an energizing effect to your body, or whether you're feeling tired, and if you are, then you might leave this next round out. So you choose. Taking the left foot forwards, the right foot back. Allowing your inhale to float the arms up, nice and easily. Exhaling, bending the left knee. Inhaling, little upper back bend. And folding forwards on your exhale. Taking hold of the chair before starting to open the back of the left knee. Finding some strength and some stability through the legs. So you can either come up the way that we did last time with the arms down by the side, or if you want a little bit more challenge, you could sweep the arms forwards and up. And stepping and changing feet. So using the support of your chair whenever it's needed. In your own time, coming into the next round. Exhaling to bend the right knee, little upper back bend as you inhale. Folding forwards, keeping the spine long. Back body open as you place the hands down and starting to open the back of the leg. And to come up, bend the right knee. Either keeping the hands down by your side or sweeping the arms up to come to standing. Before coming to bring the feet together. And taking a pause, taking a check-in here. Just notice what you notice, if there's any more sense of energy, of vitality in the body, or the opposite. Come and sit on your chair if it's available, then just take a moment to tune in here on this less active posture. You might soften your gaze or close your eyes. Tuning into your breath. Tuning into the area of the chest. Not just the front of the upper body, the front of the lungs, but the sides and the back, and so. Remembering you are a three-dimensional being, not two-dimensional. So how can you embody that quality, that three-dimensional quality here? And from here, coming into a forward bend, either on your chair, rounding over and resting the chest on the legs, or you might choose to come to the floor and take a child's pose again. So you can choose resting either the head on the ground if you're in child's pose, or resting the head down towards the floor. And from this place, it can be more helpful, this posture, to feel into the backs of the lungs and the sides of the lungs here. Be there for as little or as long as feels serving for you. Getting a sense of that opening through the backs of the lungs, sides of the lungs, before coming out, pressing down through the floor to come up. So this next supported posture, you could use that roll that we were using earlier. You might find that it's a little bit too high for this next one, so you just feel into it and change it if you need to. So this is a variation of the rolling brook upper back bend posture. So I'm going to just have that there, and that's going to be about in line with a bra strap. Sorry guys, you will have to imagine, but just to give you a sense that it's in that kind of mid-upper thoracic part of the spine. And so another really important point to this posture is neck support. So I'm going to use 2 blankets, and I might adjust them as I come into this. And I'm going to roll the top blanket up a little bit just to support my cervical spine, the nook of the neck. You might need to do that when you're in there so it holds. And then you could take your bed cushion to place underneath your knees, or you could just keep your knees bent and your feet on the floor. So as you come down into the posture, making sure that that roll is right in the middle, just behind the middle of the chest. Checking that you've got that support underneath your neck. Maybe taking that roll right into the nook. And having the feet on the floor or your legs draping over your cushion. The arms might be out to the side or in a cactus, or they might be down by your side. If that feels too open, too expansive, or too tight, or too vulnerable, then you might take the arms down. So you feel into what's right for you here. So taking the time to settle into this body shape. Settling your weight down into that support beneath you. And at first it might feel quite strong, and if it feels too strong, then change the roll underneath you. Or you might just need a little bit of time just to settle, to allow the connective tissue to soften around the upper back, around the back of the rib cage. Sensing into any opening that you feel in the front of your body. Sensing into any lengthening that you might notice in the front of the shoulders. Between the rib cage, the intercostal muscles. And sensing into any muscular or fascial opening, lengthening that you sense. And then gently sinking your awareness into the space within your rib cage. And of course, if this is uncomfortable for you, unpleasant, then you might resist that. You might return to your resource. Otherwise, sensing into the space of your lungs, the positioning of the heart, can you sense more deeply here into the lower lobes of your lungs? The greatest amount of gas exchanges happen here in the lower lungs. So can you sense the breath moving down into the lower lungs? What's amazing is that as the breath moves down into the lower lungs, the diaphragm is moving down towards the pelvis. So you might get a sense of that here. Don't worry if you don't. And again, don't force the breath. Just allow the breath to breathe how it needs to breathe, as it naturally, organically opens as part of your body. Notice if there's been any changes that have occurred through the duration of this supported upper back extension and this chest opening. And when you're ready to, making your way out of this posture, you might roll to your side. And so the last posture I'm going to invite you into is a Shavasana, as usual. And I'm going to invite you into a supported forward-facing Shavasana this morning. And I'll talk a little bit about why in a moment. Well, no, I'll talk about it now, actually. Having the organs, the vital organs, the heart, the lungs, the abdominal organs facing down, supported by the earth, can cultivate a real sense of safety and security. So it can be a really lovely posture to come into at the end of a practice, or even at the beginning of the practice, to get some grounding. But also, like I said earlier, we've got most of our lungs in the back of our body, so to have those open can get us more, can bring us more into the sense of them, but also to help the breath move into that lower lobe a little bit more easily. So I'm going to give you two options or two variations of setups for this forward-facing Shavasana. Try one or the other. If the second one might be a little bit more accessible if you normally don't find this posture comfortable. So give it a go, but if that doesn't work, then please come into a different posture that feels more comfortable for you. First option is taking two of your blankets and folding them. I folded mine in half and then in half again. So they're a slightly wider rectangle, and then one on top of the other. And then at the end of your mat, your foot end of your mat will be your bed pillow. I forgot to bring my bed pillow, so I've got a different sort of shape of pillow, but it will do the same job. That's your feet end. And then for your head end, you'll need a blanket. You might need 2 blankets or 1 blanket and a towel. So if you've got a spare blanket, then it could be helpful to have it folded going the opposite way, making a cross over this spinal support. So it will be facing this way, and that will be supporting your abdomen, your belly. So bring yourself down, and the top of your front support will be coming up to sort of the sternum, or the this area of your breastbone. And then making sure that your head is nicely supported. So my front of my ankles are just draping over my pillow. So that's a nice way of releasing pressure off the knees. My knees are slightly open and bent. And then you could make a little kind of heart-like shape for your head in your blanket. It's actually a little bit high for me, so you might go higher or lower, depending on how that feels. Now, that might not be comfortable for your belly or for your chest. So the second variation, and this is from Donna Fahi's class. Now she takes 2 blankets and places them in a triangular shape. So I've got this little gap in the middle, triangular gap, then I've got the 2 blankets on a diagonal, and they're just touching in the middle here, you can see. Hopefully you can see. And then that rolled up blanket that we've been using throughout the class, I've just unraveled mine and made it longer. And so I've still got a rolled up, but it's just slightly thinner. And that's going to be supporting the upper chest, the area of the sternum. And then for your head, this is quite a nice one. It's a little bit like a massage bed. You take your towel and roll your towel a couple of times, once or twice, and then fold it round into the shape of your face. You can play around with that a little bit here too. And the feet are in the same place, over the blankets. So you might, or over the pillow, might need to adjust, might need to widen or bring this triangle a little bit closer together. So you play around with that. So hopefully one of those 2 options feel comfortable in your body. If you've got a spare blanket, put that on top of you, or make sure that you're nice and warm. And if neither of those feel comfortable in your body, then know that you can change. Lie on your back or lie on your side. If you're lying on your back, then you might use one of your blankets just along that length, or just to give you a little bit of extra weight, not necessarily to fully cover you, but just folded on the front of the body. Recreating that floor-like sensation, that support-like sensation. And it's just started to rain, which is quite nice, being in the yurt when it's raining. I don't know if you can hear that, it's very gentle at the moment. So take this time to settle. If you are lying on your front, can you sense any feelings of safety and any feelings of security? So softening the weight down into that support beneath you. Feel into that support beneath you. Don't think about it, but really feel and sense into that contact, that feeling of contact in your body. Surrendering the weight of your body down, 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 down into the ground. You might use your exhale to encourage that settling. And know that there is nothing that needs to be done here. The unraveling, the softening, the releasing, that all happens when we leave everything alone. You might reflect back to our class last week and the image of that still mirror-like water and how that has become how it is by leaving it alone. So how might it be to let go of any control, let go of any wish to make something different, to make your experience different? You sense into the back surface of your body. Can you sense into the back of your lungs? Can you allow your breath to be just as it is? Just as it is, without making it bigger or better or fuller, without making it different. How might it feel to just step away and simply let your breath breathe you? How much can you let go of effort? How much can you allow your breath to enter and leave on its own accord? I'd like to share with you a poem, and then after I finish the poem, I'll just leave you to rest, savouring some silence for a little while. So the poem is by Dana Folds. It's called Breath of Life. I breathe in all that is. Awareness expanding to take everything in. As if my heart beats the world into being. From the unnamed vastness beneath the mind, I breathe my way to wholeness and healing. Inhalation, exhalation. Each breath a yes and a letting go, a journey and a coming home. Sensing into the internal movement of your breath. Knowing that you are perfect just as you are. Nothing needed to change here. Opening up to your experience towards the end of your practice. Your experience right now as you rest here in your body. Scanning your being for any feelings of nourishment, any feelings of ease, any feelings of pleasantness, of peace. Don't worry if those aren't appearing for you here. Noticing if there have been any changes since you first arrived in your practice, however small or subtle. And inviting some movement perhaps when you're ready to, back into your body. Take your time to move again. And doing any movements that feel what your body might need after that stillness, after that posture. You might like to, if you have been lying on your front, you might like to press back into a child's pose at some point. But eventually coming to some sort of seated posture on the floor or in a chair. And once you arrive there, then softening your gaze or closing your eyes. And ever so gently, how might it be to settle your awareness into the area of your heart? You might place a hand there to help sense into that part of your being. Just notice if there's been any softening here, any sense of warmth or release or relaxing. And this practice is coming to practice on your mat is an act of love. So how might it be to hold yourself into this heart space? It might be bringing an image of yourself into this heart space. It might just be a feeling of bringing yourself into your heart. Just holding yourself there, sending yourself some loving kindness, some warmth, some light. Some nourishing awareness. And then from this place, perhaps you would like to invite somebody into your heart space, and that might be a loved one that's in need of some extra support right now. It might be a friend, it might be somebody that you don't know very well, but you know needs some kind thoughts and some loving kindness. So you could get an image of them and place that image in the area of your heart. Or just simply getting a sense of them and holding them there in your heart space. You might wish them to be happy. May you be happy and well and free from suffering. And from here you might feel the wish to extend that out to all beings within your own country and nationwide and internationally across the world. May all beings be happy and peaceful. And if you like, you could bring the hands together in front of the heart. Namaste. May this practice serve you in any way and help nourish and bring ease to your life.